Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. So, for today, I wanted to do part two of like Nollywood film reviews because the first time I did it, I had so much fun having this discussion with Cynthia. So, I figured that's why not do a part two since we are in the month of October and every October we celebrate Nigeria's Independence Day, right? So, even though the country is going through some difficulties and some challenges, I figure that we can always still celebrate our culture, and part of the culture is with like the film in the industry, right? I feel like Nollywood is doing a lot of great things, so I'm excited to have like a part two of this discussion. So let's just wait until Cynthia joins us. The first parts that we did of the Nollywood film reviews were like really awesome films that we think that people should watch, right? So for this second part, it's like movies that you should have already watched if you haven't yet watched them on Netflix. Like I feel like these are like movies you typically associate with like maybe Nigeria or just like some fun movies that you might enjoy on Netflix. So if you haven't already watched it, then you should watch these movies. So let's just give Cynthia a few minutes until she's able to join. So Cynthia will be joining in a few minutes. When I was texting her, I was asking her, so what are some of like the top movies on Netflix that you think people should have watched that they haven't already watched? And then she gave me a really good list. Like Cynthia's recommendations are always awesome, right? So she told me there's Living in Bondage, there's Lionhearts, there's Rattlesnake, the Ahana story, and then I was telling her of some like classics, right? Like Wedding Party and Blood Sisters, but that's like the mini series on Netflix. So she gave me some like good recommendations of movies that people should watch. And recently I actually just watched Living in Bondage, and I really loved it. So I can't wait to talk to her about it because I feel like there's some actors there that I usually don't talk about, but like I really want to talk about because Ramsey Noah as the villain is just he's amazing. I think I'm in love because I just love him as the villain. He does such a good job as the villain. So I can't wait to talk to her about that movie because I'm really in love with Ramsey. Like he does such a good job, right? So Living in Bondage, I really enjoyed it and I hadn't seen it before. So I'm so glad that she recommended that movie to me. So she gave me a list of really good movies and even Lionhearts. I watched Lionhearts before and I really loved it. So I feel like if you haven't yet watched it, like Genevieve is just one of like I would call her like our like old-time favorites, our legends. Like when it comes to Nigerian actresses, everybody knows who Genevieve is, right? So definitely a really good movie to watch that's on Netflix if you haven't yet watched it. So let's just give her a few minutes. So come on. So Cynthia's gonna come on in 10 minutes. So while I'm here, I might as well discuss more about some of the favorite movies that I really liked, right? So I was telling her that when I was thinking about like movies that everybody should have already watched on Netflix, right? The first thing that came to my mind was also like Wedding Party. Because I remember that when I graduated, when I did my undergrad, right? So that was around like 2015, 2016. When I came back to Nigeria, that was around 2016, 2017. That was the movie that everybody kept talking about, right? And then the two actresses that acted, like Adesoyun and Banky W, they ended up getting married, right? So I remember when I was coming back to Nigeria doing National Youth Service Corps, that was the time like the movie was really a big thing, right? That everybody was talking about the movie. And it was around that year that it was sort of like, that they were sort of like releasing it to the public, and it did a really great job in the theaters. Like it's got like a lot of money. So, and I believe it was is it Mo Abodu? She's the one that produces all these movies. So it was a really big hit, right? And I felt like that was such I wouldn't call it a classic, because if we are talking about classics, then we are going back to, all of this Aki and Papa stuff. But I feel like it was one of those movies that everybody really recognizes as like a big Nigerian movie. And I think it's just like a fun movie for you to watch if you haven't yet, right? So I think that the movie just does a good job of showing like, traditional Nigerian culture, and just even like a mixture of comedy, the way we see the wedding planner just like acting ridiculous. And then we also see the mom, right? When we did the last movie review, we talked about Soba Wale, if I'm saying her name very well, right? Soba Wale, Soba Wale. And she does such like she's very, very entertaining in her role as the mom, right, of the bride, and she's so dramatic. So I think it's just one of those fun movies that you should watch if you haven't yet. Like you just have a good time enjoying the movie. And that was even the first time that I was introduced to Beverly Naya, because later, after I watched the documentary Skin, I was like, oh, she does such an amazing job. And that's such an important movie to watch, especially one of the important themes that we think about in Nigeria has to do with like colorism and things like that. And that was a good documentary that Beverly produced. But we are being introduced to her, right? But in a different role where she sort of like plays the ex that's not really so happy that Banky is getting married, right? So that was one of the first movies that came to my mind when I was thinking about, okay, something that people should watch that they haven't already watched. Because I know that when I had come back to Nigeria initially and I was doing my National Youth Service Corps, that was around the time that that movie was being released. And I think it was one of the toppest ranking films in Nollywood at that time, whether there are other movies that have probably taking the slots for that. But that was one of the big things that people were talking about at the time. And the fact that those two actresses ended up together, I thought was kind of like an interesting thing, right? A unique thing. So that was one of the things that I shared with Cynthia. I said that definitely that should be on the list. If you haven't watched it, right? It's something to watch. And then I had thought about Blood Sisters, but not the one that's actually on Netflix, because I know my mom always likes to watch that movie. So that was with Genevieve, right? So that was what I initially mentioned. And then I found out on Netflix they like have another mini series. And that's such a good series. Like, because I haven't had enough time to really catch up on Nollywood, I just like had to do that recently. And it's such a good series. I know that when we initially did part one of like the Nollywood film reviews, Cynthia had said that Glamour Girls was like a good movie to watch for action. But I feel like Blood Sisters is a really good movie to watch for action. Like as I'm watching it, I feel like it's such a great plot, right? It's a great plot where we see like as they are starting out, like there's like Sarah, right? And she's supposed to be there's like their two friends, Sarah and Kemi, and one of them, Sarah, is supposed to be getting married to somebody, right? But the husband isn't exactly the best person, right? He's somebody that he attacks her, he beats her. So there's that aspect of domestic violence going on. And right before they're about to get married, she's like, oh, she wants to leave this, like she doesn't want to do it. But then he attacks her, and he's even like trying to harm her. And then her friend comes in, right? And then what happens is that she ends up killing him in attempts of her trying to help her friend. So the way this movie starts off, the plots, I feel like it's the action in it is really good. And that's something we don't always elaborate on Nigerian films. So as I'm watching this recently, I'm really thinking that this movie is such a good movie as far as action scenes, right? Where they are attacking somebody and then they end up killing him, right? So essentially, these two ladies are now on the run because they've murdered somebody, right? And then there are the families are also involved and wondering like what's going on, what's happened to the groom that was supposed to get married but then ends up getting murdered. So this is actually a really great film, and I'm surprised that I actually haven't already watched it, because as I'm watching it right now, I think the actresses do such a good job, right? So I'm seeing Kemi as Nancy Iseme, and I think I watched her in another film on Netflix where she had this friend who got married to somebody in India, something like that, right? But she's actually a really great actress as the person who plays the friend who ends up killing the groom because he was trying to harm Sarah, right? So she does a really good job as an actress. And then we are also seeing some like Ini Dima Okoji. She's Sarah also. She's one of the main characters in these films. And she's essentially running away from, a domestic abuse marriage. And then she doesn't know what she's gotten herself into, finding out that there's been this like big murder and she's involved with it. And they also end up killing somebody else. So I have like 20 minutes left of that movie, but I think that it's such a good movie. It's such a fun movie and it's such a good action film, right? And there's Wale Ojo who plays the inspector, Ojo Obasanjo, and he does such a good job. Like he always has like this toothpick in his mouth, and he's like, "Oh, he's from Chicago. He's going to solve this crime." Like as I was watching it, I'm just laughing. Like he's really getting himself into the mindset of an inspector. And even though it's kind of stereotypical the way he's acting, right? Like he is literally making me laugh a lot. So definitely, I would say Blood Sisters is actually a really good movie for action. So if you haven't yet watched this mini series on Netflix, do watch it because it's like they do a really great job. And I feel like Nancy Seme is like she's somebody that actually should be on everybody's radar when it comes to great actresses because she's very, very dynamic in the roles that she plays. Like I know I've seen her in another like movie also where she was just like the fun best friend, but she is definitely a leading actress. And I feel like she does such a great job. As I'm watching the mini series, I'm really enjoying it. Another options that we talked about, right, is Lionheart. And I had watched Lionheart like either like 2 to 3 years back. It's been a while that I've watched it, but I know that it's such a really great movie to watch. So if you haven't yet watched it, and I've talked about how Genevieve is just like one of those legends who's been around in Nollywood for a while, right? So the plot is essentially around like, she's running a company and it can be challenging because it's sort of like this male dominated industry, right? So something happens to her dad. So she has to sort of like step up and take up the leading role while there's another family member, her and her uncle. So they sort of like have this conflict where the two of them are trying to sort of like, take charge and run the dad's company and run it to the best of, her abilities, right? So I thought this was just such a great movie to see her in. She always plays the leading role, right? But to see her like in sort of like this corporate environment and try to prove her worth amongst all these other men and really just try to take the charge and the lead. So it was such a really good movie and something that I would definitely rewatch again. It was like 2 to 3 years ago that I watched it and I really loved it. And she's such a great actress. So this is something that you should watch. And there's another movie that Cynthia had recommended called Rattlesnake, the Ahana. She called it the Ahana story, and it's an action film, right? So when she comes on, she's going to talk about why that's such a good movie that you should watch. And I love the fact that some of the suggestions that she had is like action movies, right? Because typically we always think about romantic drama. And I've said this before, like Nollywood is good at that, but they've really been moving away from that stereotype of only doing like the romantic drama movie and they are doing these action films. And they are doing such a good job in these action films and in these action roles. So I'm excited to hear her talk a little bit more about that rattlesnake. But I know that as I'm watching Blood Sisters, like it's such a good movie as an action. And I feel like that one actually is so much better than Glamour Girls, in my own opinion, just for like action. Because I feel like Glamour Girls was more of like a drama. Whereas, like with Blood Sisters, there are so many things happening, and I feel like the actresses they really do such a good job. So those are like our top 5 movies. And I think that if you haven't yet watched it, you should. So she's gonna come in a little later and talk to you a little bit more about why you should watch more of these movies. I was also like thinking of comedies because I know that I really enjoyed Soole. And when I was in Nigeria, something else I had really enjoyed was Aki and Popo. And I feel like those are some of like the classic Nigerian films that I actually wanted to do a video on that, like some of these classic Nigerian stuff. But I'm focusing on Netflix because we all have access to Netflix, right? So, but I was also thinking about like all these traditional stuff that most people like would like think of as like the local setting, or do you think about like when you think about introducing like Nigerian cinema to the public? Because I know that when I was in Nigeria I had watched like the Aki and Popo, but this isn't like the from the like olden days when they were like initially acting, because they've been around for a while, right? So it was just something that they had put in the cinemas, just about them being out of the industry and trying to get back in the industry. And I think that's still on Netflix, right? So that was actually really fun to watch. Hello, Cynthia. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Nice to see you. It's been a while. Well, just a few months ago, right, that I've seen you.
Yeah,
How are you
like
doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm
How are you
doing
doing
great.
over
I'm doing okay. A little bit busy, but I'm doing okay. So yeah, I wanted us to do like a part two of our movie review collaboration because I had such a fun time in the very first one. So I just wanted to know like what are some of those movies that if people haven't already watched, they should have already watched. Like tell us a bit more about some of your favorite films on Netflix that you feel like if people haven't watched, they should watch and why.
there? Okay, so
Mhm.
there are like a lot of good Nollywood movies,
Yes.
like a whole lot. When I started, when I even saw some, I was really surprised. I was like, ah,
Yeah.
Marvel, they're really brilliant. This is Nigerian
Yeah.
industry. So we have movies like Living in Bondage, that's like
Yes.
Living in Bondage,
Mm-hmm.
the sequel from the prequel. So this one is more like an extension of the first one. I don't know if some people have seen like the first Living in Bondage,
Hmm.
but like this second one is quite it's like there's a lot of like improvements on it compared to the first one. Cause like after I saw this second Living in Bondage, I had to see the part one of it, and I
Okay,
could
okay.
see the difference between the both movies, the part one and the part two, and like different upgrades in it. So there's Living in Bondage, there's Rattlesnake, the Anna story. Although like
Hmm.
the Rattlesnake, the one from 1995, I have not seen that one yet. But it
Okay,
was this
okay.
one I saw. Because I know
Mm-hmm.
sometime in I think 2020, I know like I was seeing on YouTube where they were like they bring out a Rattlesnake, a different one. But I was not
Okay.
really so interested in it. So this
Hmm.
Rattlesnake was in 2022 I saw it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know why I didn't review it the time I saw it, but like it was very captivating. I really enjoyed watching it. Although I saw it with someone, so it was very, very interesting.
Can you tell me
There's
about it? Because
also
I haven't. Yeah, yeah. Can we
you
like? Can
haven't
you tell me a
seen
bit
the
about that
Rattlesnake,
rattlesnake, the Hannah story? No, I
okay,
haven't seen
Diana
it yet.
story.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is more like I would say I would not say it's a sequel of the prequel because this
Okay.
one is still like it's kind of like the same storyline with the part one, but it's like
Okay.
more of an upgraded version of it. Here
Hmm.
is about a young man and his dad died. Like she came into their house, armed robbers came and they killed his dad.
Oh, wow.
And it happened that the people that killed his dad, they were like family. They knew them. They were not just some strangers that just came. They
Okay.
were not just a coincidental burglars that came into the house. It was like a
Wow.
plan. So his mom was aware, and the way his mom acted, she didn't really. She was not so remorseful about
Hmm.
his father's death. So she even had to. She got married to someone relating to them. I think his uncle or so. So like it
Okay.
just felt like it was so planned. So
Hmm.
Anna was, he was just conflicted, he was confused, he was not really having it, he was not happy about the whole situation. The whole thing made him a rebel. He was just doing things anyhow, so he had to leave home. He went to the village, he stayed with his family for a while. That's like the extended family. I think his grandma
Wow.
and his granddad, yeah, for a while. Then he they try to stop him from being like, for him to just get past what happened to his dad and just, look like
Okay.
future, the bright future ahead of him, but
Yeah.
he couldn't. It was so like it was just in a rough part. So he came
Wow.
back to city. Then his childhood friend, he met them again. So they formed a robbery group called the Ahamadas. Okay, sorry, let me get
Wow.
the name of that robbery group.
Mm.
Okay, the Amadas. So
Mm.
they came together. So when they started this robbery group, they started like they were, this thing where what is this stuff? This to give to the poor, take from the rich and give to the poor. Here. So
Yeah.
they started it like that initially,
Okay.
but
Okay.
later they now started to, put the money for themselves. They were
Oh,
really,
wow. And it became
they were
like
really
this thug or this gang, or is that what
yeah,
happened?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yes, yeah. So they were really like the talk of the town. A lot
Wow.
of people knew them. They were like,
Hmm.
they were like source of inspiration to some, while for others they weren't. So like, different opinions about them. So
Wow.
now Anna, so along the line there was this lady Amara. They were
Hmm.
childhood friends too. So like, she liked him from when they were kids. So now he knew and like he took her like at that moment I was just going through a lot, so they were having a thing. But later, Anna wanted to. So later, I started understanding the business, and he
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to turn a new leaf. He wanted to like leave the whole robbery thing. But
Yeah.
then it was not like it was quite too late because like they already gone deep into it, and he had this friend. I'm coming. Let me get the friend's name. Nze.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. No, 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 Nze. Sorry. Okay, yeah, Nze was his friend. Nze was
Mm-hmm.
Amara's brother. So he
Mm.
was quite like a rebel, like he was also very stubborn. So there were like so many times. I think there was a particular scene in the movie where they were not supposed to go to some place and they were not supposed to review a certain secret. But
Mm-hmm.
when they let loose, then it was like a loose can in their own group. So they started because they didn't really know where they were, like their
Yeah.
all hideout. It was all secret. So I think when they got drunk and it just started spilling out in the wrong place, and now
Mm.
they found where they were, so they came to their place. By then, nah, he already started a new life. He already got like he literally
Wow.
created like his own family. He had his own
Mm.
wife. He wanted to start all over again. But then it was quite too late for him because then Amara he had already pissed a lot of people off. Amara, I think
Mm.
she killed his wife and you know his family. I don't
Wow.
let me not even bring too much spoilers. But this movie is very,
Yeah.
very interesting, very
Yeah.
intrigued. Even the whole CGI effect they used in the movie, they tried. Very, very interesting movie.
Hmm. And I want to
I
watch it
was
because I
really
know that that
excited.
Stan as a he's a very good actor. He does a very good job at acting. Even just that Afem Fuma that I watched with him, I know that he's a good actor and he can play different roles. So I like that you recommended that movie. And when I looked it up, it's like an action film, like an action horror film, right? So I know he's a good
Mm-hmm.
actor. So he probably is definitely going to do a good job. And I think he's definitely making a name for himself in the industry because he has seen his name a lot, right? So
Yeah.
definitely,
No.
yes.
He can portray anything. If he wants to be a rebel, if he wants to be a
Yeah, he can
gangster,
play any
any
role. And I
role,
like that the fact that
exactly.
they don't typecast him. So that's good. Yeah.
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 So yeah, I
So the
recommend
next
it. So
movie, yeah. So
okay.
the next movie I want to talk about because I recently watched it is you recommended like Living in Bondage and I was like so impressed by this movie. Like so let's talk a little bit about it.
Okay, I should go
Yes.
first.
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So this living in bondage is like I said earlier, is the sequel of the prequel. I had to see the prequel first, and
Okay,
there was
okay.
a lot of the gap between the both of them is so a lot.
Okay,
The
okay.
prequel, sorry, the sequel basically, it shows a lot of improvement and
Oh,
it dives all deep into the whole occult thing. So
hmm.
the movie is about, just from the prequel, we had this guy, Andy, who, he sacrificed his wife for money rituals.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his
So now,
daughter. Yes.
they have a son, Namdi,
Mhm, mhm.
who was struggling with life. And funny enough, this sequel, Andy was also there, but now he was already a pastor, so he had
Okay.
already given his life to God.
Mhm.
But he didn't really have like a connection, like they didn't really have a relationship with his son now. So
Yeah.
Namdi is here, a young boy trying to survive with life, and this was portrayed by Jide Kene.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was in the corporate world, the money, what he was working, like the money was not
Yeah.
enough. So he started meeting these whole rich, influential people. So he met Richard, and Richard started to, tell him about how to make money.
Make
And
that
he
money
kind of like
quickly. That's what he was
told
thinking.
him,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly how to make money, and he told him the sacrifices he will make in order to make the money. So there was a part in this sequel of,
Hmm.
sorry, living in bondage. Yeah, when Richard was, telling Namdi about the whole scope of having to make the kind of money they are making or what it
Yeah.
entails. So there
Mm-hmm.
was like a connection from that scene to the prequel of it, where they were telling his father Andy that okay, this
Hmm.
is what you have to do to make this kind of money. So it just puts Namdi in a situation where he's just quite confused. He needs this
Mm-hmm.
money, but now he has to
Yeah.
sacrifice. Who does he want to sacrifice? So
Yes.
yeah, and this one it shows us, this movie shows affluence, wealth, the kind of cars they use. They showed us this
Yes.
whole awkward scene. It was so real, so
Oh my
original.
God.
It,
Yeah. And it
and
was scary
yeah,
also. It was scary. Like the way it started, I was like, oh, okay. It starts saying like, he's coming with his daughter. And I was like, oh, this is a sweet scene. And then he kills her. And I'm just like, why? Like I was like, oh my God, the way the movie starts. I didn't watch the first one though. So now I feel like I want to watch the first one, right? But the way it started off with that scene, I was just like terrified. But the plot is so good. Like the plot is really so good. And it makes you know how some like young men can be lured into doing bad things, which is actually a reality in Nigeria, right? Like we know that it's not easy for people to make money, so they can get into all these bad groups or ritualists just to get into this money business. So I felt like the main actor, what's his name? He does such a good job, right? Jide Kene as
Namdi
Namandi, like
Hideki,
he's a good
yes,
guy. He knows that he's not making enough money in advertising, so he just gets lured into this. And then I kept on saying earlier before you came in, right? I didn't really used to know about Ramsey Noah. So he's like the boss, right? He's the one that encourages him into it.
yeah,
He
Richard,
does such a good job as the villain. Like I loved him as the villain. Like he's so bad that he's so good though, right? Like the way he just tells him that no, no, no. After all this money that you've gotten, after the way you've enjoyed, you don't think you're going to sacrifice anything. You think I'm just going to let you
mm-hmm.
walk free. That scene was so intense. And then you see how crazy he gets about everything. And it was funny to see the brother again, right? Because we talked about him in Soole. To see that the brother again, I forgot his name, but to see him play the brother role and ask him what's going on. And then there's this scene, like we are spoiling everything for everybody, right? Where he's almost about to kill the brother, but then he kills himself. I was just like, oh my God, wow. Because I thought it would have been so terrible if he ended up killing the brother. But the fact that he survived, like the plot of that story like deserves like a round of applause. Like I really enjoyed it. Do you think it was better than the first one? Because I didn't watch the first one. Was it
Yeah,
much
a
better?
whole lot. Yeah, like
Oh, they did
when you
such a
watch
good
the first
job.
one, you see, yeah, the gap is like so very, very
Oh, really?
different. This second one just, yeah, it just
Okay.
basically showed everything. Yeah,
Okay. So the first one wasn't really as good as the second one.
nah, it wasn't at
Okay.
all.
Wow,
Too
because I
far.
really loved it. And me, I don't always like action, but the way it just started towards the ending, and even is it Obina or Obina, the way the fact that he dies because he's just haunted by the fact that he killed his daughter, right? I thought it was so
Mm-hmm.
good, like because he kept on seeing her, I kept on seeing her, like she was like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, and then he ends up taking his life, like the movie was really good. I feel like as far as like action, like if you haven't watched it, it's like a really good movie to appreciate like the way like Nigerian producers are doing a better job like building the storyline and even the actors and actresses. Like I don't know, I just keep praising Ramsey because I was like as the villain, like I love him as the villain. Like I really do. Like he does such a good job. So thanks for recommending that movie because I hadn't watched it until you told me. So it's such a good movie for people to watch. Yeah.
yeah. So what would
Yes.
you rate it?
Oh yeah, we are not even giving it ratings, right? I'd give it like a 5 out of 5 if it's like 5 stars. Like it was really good. Like I really enjoyed it. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5 star too.
So what other films should people watch that they haven't yet watched?
Okay, so
Ye-
Blood Sisters.
Yes, yeah.
The funny thing about this movie was that
Mm-hmm.
when this miniseries came out on Netflix, like everybody was talking about it. And
Yeah.
people
Hmm.
they didn't really give so much spoilers, but like a lot of people were like, this movie is so good, this movie is so
Yeah.
good, and like I was like, ah, no, I have to see
Hmm.
this movie. So
Yeah.
now the plot is about two best friends, Sarah
Yeah.
and Kemi. And
Mm-hmm.
the movie started with the whole because there was like a wedding. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sarah was the one getting married. So she was getting married to a wealthy um a wealthy man, Kola
Mm-hmm.
Ademola, from a really wealthy
Yeah.
family, and it was so obvious that his family had more money. So like it was like
Mm.
she loved him, but the money was part of why she was getting married to him, and
Yeah.
he was a really abusive man. So on their
Mm-hmm.
wedding day, she felt like she was just so scared, and I don't know, she just said that she didn't want to, like she wanted to call off the wedding, and it was
Yeah.
not taking it at all. Then our friend, while he was, trying to handle her, that was when our friend came in, and I think she used something to hit Ademola, and he
Hmm.
falls down and dies. So that's like the plot of the movie. One thing I love about this movie was that when this movie came out, um sorry, Kola's mom, which was
Mm-hmm.
played by Kate Anshaw, and her name was Udwa in the movie. The
Mm-hmm.
first scene of her was where she was like this very uptight woman who does
Yes.
not smile and who was so strict, and that
Honestly,
particular
I
picture,
hate
that was
her.
like a meme because
Yeah.
everybody was using that
Yeah.
everybody was using that meme. I know she was not even considerate of like she didn't really like her daughter-in-law, but based on the time wanted to get married
Yeah.
to her, like she was like, okay.
She's so
So
mean in the
another
movie,
thing that
yo. Even to her daughter, like that
yeah, she
scene where
was
the daughter
so
like wants to
mean.
take over, and she's like, "How would you take over? You're useless." I was like, ah, she was so mean. Continue, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this scene where I think sorry,
Yeah.
Demola just I think
Hmm.
he just Sarah, and her mom was aware of it, and
Mm.
instead of her to like go, she was instead she was telling her daughter to enjoy it, and it all just comes with
Yes.
marriage. And in my head I was like, what
Really?
is
Ah,
this? Yeah, that's this. I was like, ah, no.
honestly.
But the movie was really, really good. I really liked I liked the hype with the movie because like the hype with the
Mm.
movie also helped. The movie was still good. Was like really, really good. It was very tense. Cause me, I didn't even expect Ademola to die. Like I was wondering, because when like everybody was
Mm.
talking about him, I was wondering what was the spectacular thing about this movie. So like the way his
Mm.
death came, it was so unplanned, it was unexpected, it was a very tense movie, and the I feel like the way the movie started with there was this whole tension in the atmosphere of the movie, like there was this whole rush, and
Yeah.
there was this particular vibe that the movie had from the start of the movie. I feel like I
Exactly.
felt like this movie close to the ending of the mini series rather, close to the
Mhm.
end of the series because I'm expecting like a more probably a season 2 or something. Because like we are not done.
Mm.
Because I know this series ended with they having to chase Kemi and Sarah. They were looking for them after they had killed Ademola. But I felt
Okay.
like
Yeah.
close to the end, they were like rushing it a bit, and they were just
Yeah.
trying to. I don't know. I felt like they were just. So
Mm.
I felt like the stuff started with it lost the
Mhm.
source close to the end of the series for me. But aside that, they did well. The cinematography was also nice.
Yeah, it was like the action in it was so amazing, and we see Kola again. I feel like Kola, they're always going to use him as this abusive husband, right? Let me go to the notes that I took about it. It's like they're always using him as like that's the name of the husband, right? As this person that is abusive, and he does such a good job in the beginning. And even when she's like saying that she wants to leave the marriage, and then that's the scene where he gets killed, right? And like you said, there's this tension, like there's a wedding about to happen, but then the groom is like he's been murdered, right? So there's just this tension in that movie, and they do such a good job. And I was thinking that as far as like the two leading actresses, like the women, right? So her friend Nancy also, she does a really great job in her acting. Oh, the screen is frozen a bit. Cynthia's screen is frozen a bit. I hope she can still hear me though. Maybe hopefully the screen will come back on because her screen is a bit frozen. But yeah, as she was saying, like the movie is really like tense, and there are so many different things happening. And I feel like Nancy also does a good job as this supporting friend, but she's also the person that's helping her friend to cover up a murder. And then there's also another scene where there's like they take the life of somebody else that's trying to bribe them because he knows that they've already killed somebody, right? So it's so intense. And I think that Nancy actually deserves all the applause. I mean, she and Sarah, they both deserve applause, right? But she definitely does a good job in her role of trying to like cover up the scene, and then they try to run away and flee the country after they know that they've committed this murder. Like it's so intense. And I feel like for an action film, it's definitely a very good, interesting movie to watch, right? Let's hold on and wait for Cynthia to get back because I think maybe her internet connection might have cut off a bit. But yeah, that's something I actually just recently watched. Cynthia said that the movie was really hyped up, like in Nigeria. Let me even look up the year that I believe it was 2022 that it came out. Movie series that people had been talking about it. Yeah, 2022. And the thing is that I always knew it was out there in Netflix, but I didn't know that this mini series was based on something different, right? I was actually just thinking that maybe it was a remake of that older movie where those it was with those two sisters, right, with Genevieve. So I thought it was just a remake, and I had recently just watched that mini series. But as far as like an action, like wow, it's so good. It does like it's very very intense, and like I was telling you, right, with the inspector general that's like hunting them down, and he always has this toothpick in his mouth, and he's always talking about like, oh yeah, he's sniffing something. He knows that something's up, something's funny. Like he just made me laugh. You'll definitely have a good time watching that movie. Let's hold on and wait for Cynthia to come back on because we have like two more movies that she's going to let us know about. That's going to be Lionheart and Wedding Party. Yes, Lionheart and Wedding Party. So let me send her a message to see whether she's going to be able to come back on. But as she was recommending Rattlesnake, the Ahana story, I definitely am going to watch that because I know that Stan Eze, he's such a good actor. So anything he does it so well. So I definitely know that if there's a movie and he's in it, there's no doubt that he'll do such a great job acting. So I'm definitely going to have to watch that movie, the Ahana story, Rattlesnake. Okay. Hey,
Hi.
Cynthia, you're back. I almost lost you. I guess it was the connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
network.
So we have two more movies to go through again. There are two more movies that you had recommended. Do you want to talk about Lionheart and why people should watch that movie?
Okay.
Yeah.
So for Lionheart,
Mm-hmm.
this one song stars Genevieve. I saw this film
Yeah.
20, 2018 or 2019.
Yeah.
I
It's been
can't
a couple of
remember
years
which
that I watched it
December.
actually, like 3 or 4 years that I watched it back.
Sorry, this
Mm-hmm.
took a while to find.
Yeah.
So I read that
Mm-hmm.
this movie was like the first Nigerian movie acquired by Netflix.
Oh, really? Wow. The very first acquired by
Yeah,
Netflix? Wow. Damn.
yeah.
That's cool. Good for her.
Mhm. And I also heard it was like nominated for Oscars, but I think it didn't get Oscars
Yeah.
based on. I think Oscars, the nomination was for the, I think, language speaking. So I think they were like Igbo and English combined together. I think they
Okay,
said
okay.
the English was more than the Igbo.
Okay,
So
okay. Wow.
yeah, so they
That's
didn't
a
give
good
it
fact to
Oscar.
know that it was actually the very first movie acquired by Netflix. Wow. Hmm. So what did you
Yeah.
think about
So
like the
the movie is
storyline?
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
story, yeah, story
Mm-hmm.
about a young lady, Adeze,
Mm-hmm.
who her father got ill, and now she has to manage the father's business because father works.
Yeah.
He owns a lion. Sorry, he owns a transport business called Lion Heart, and
Mm-hmm.
now she has to co-work with her uncle. I think God's will. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this movie was, I like the visual of this movie because
Mm-hmm.
it's a very clear visual, and I
Yeah.
low key like that, they had like, I feel when I was watching this movie I felt very connected to this movie. Probably because
Mm.
they had a lot of Igbo language in the movie, so I felt
Okay.
like there was a kind of connection I had while watching the movie. And I also,
Mm.
I enjoyed the acting, although
Yeah.
Ikeomo was our own film. It was more of
Mm-hmm.
the funny, hilarious
Yeah.
character. While
Yeah.
Chris was more of the
The
serious, traumatized,
serious, high strong
professional,
first
yeah,
lady. Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
prove a point, trying to, yeah. I feel like this movie showed, okay, I wrote something down.
Yeah.
It showed, sorry,
No, it's okay.
yeah. Okay, yeah, it shows gender empowerment. She
Mm-hmm.
having to run her father's business, even though
Yeah.
her uncle was like the interim head, like interim manager, but it was still
Mm-hmm.
going to still end up being hers, but he was just there to guide her. So yeah, and also
Mm-hmm.
it also shows betrayal because I think they had a, so there was someone she was dating from it, from their, I think their connected company, who I think he betrayed her later on.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember this guy's name. I can't really figure his name right now.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a really interesting movie.
Yeah, yeah. Genevieve definitely does a good job in the movie as playing like this. She has to take on the role of, like taking charge of this company in spite of the fact that, her father has passed away. I remember that it's been a while that I watched it, but I know that it was a really big thing on Netflix back then. And the fact that you let me
Mm-hmm.
know that it was the very first movie that Netflix acquired, maybe that's why it was a big thing. Because I know I remember watching it and being like, oh, it's Genevieve. It's been a while that I've seen her. So she definitely does a good job in her leading role as this supporting, in a leading role as like taking on like the boss and being in charge of the company. And so, yeah, I really love that as far as like female empowerment. It's definitely been a while that I've watched it. I would definitely like to go back and rewatch it again just so that I can know more about the plot. But I know that back then when I had watched it, I really loved it. And she's such a great actress, right? She's somebody that has been around for a while. So, yeah, if you haven't yet seen it, that's definitely something that people should watch. Yeah. And then lastly, we'll talk about like I said I wanted to I recommended like things that people if you haven't already watched it yet. I feel like every Nigerian has probably watched Wedding Party, but I think that it's something that's is just a fun movie that if you haven't watched, you should rewatch. Because earlier on, I was saying that when I had come back to Nigeria, like after New York, that was when the movie had really gotten out. It was like 2016, 2017. And I remember I was doing NYSC then. And I feel like that was such a big thing. And everybody was talking about like their wedding because they were also like, they just met each other and they were going to get married then, right? So like everybody was talking about that in Nigeria. So I felt like for me coming back, that was like a big movie for me also because that was something that everybody was talking about and they were talking about those two actors and actresses. So what do you think about that? Is it like a favorite for every Nigerian or do you just feel like it's just a fun movie to watch? What do you think?
Nah, it is a favorite. I remember when I
Yeah,
saw
it's
Wedding Party, I
definitely.
was laughing.
Yeah.
I was laughing a lot.
Yeah.
I think there was this
Mm-hmm.
particular character that I felt like he held the movie a lot. I think
Mm.
I can't remember his name. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to get his name, so I'm very precise for him. But yeah, he really tried in this Wedding Party.
Mhm.
I felt like his acting was not so forced. He was just, he was just effortlessly funny in that
Is it the
movie. I think
minister
it's
that
just
was always praying? Is it the one that was always praying the crazy prayers?
no, I think he was was so relating to them also, but it was also really,
Oh,
really
okay,
funny
okay.
too. Yeah, I remember watching
As
when
the
this
person that
person
was
was
doing the prayer
laughing a
was
lot.
so it's almost too much,
I
but it
was
was
laughing a lot. Yeah, I was
yeah.
laughing a lot watching
Hmm.
a movie about two lovers, what is
Yeah.
that name? Sorry. Zuni and Dozier. Junior
Yes.
and Dozier from two
Hmm.
different tribes. They come
Hmm.
together. They want to get married. I know the
Yeah.
movie just basically just reflects how chaotic planning high
Yeah.
profile weddings can be.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
yeah, exactly, and how hilarious it can be, and how emotional. It just shows like
Yeah.
the whole process it goes through, and also attached with comedy also.
Yeah,
And there was this
definitely.
scene in the movie where Dozier's mom, because initially she didn't really want
Mm-hmm.
Zuni for her son, so she was quite condescending towards her, and
Mm-hmm.
looking at her and like
Yeah.
saying, "Nah, you're not supposed to be the one my son gets married to." And yeah, her mom comes, Denise's mom comes, and she was like, nah, she was like standing up for her child, like she challenged
Mm-hmm.
her, and she was kind of like, why
Yeah.
would she say that to her child? And I feel like that particular scene just basically just shows that even in social class, there's still like different social grades and social status. You feel like you're here,
Yeah.
but there are levels to it. So that particular scene
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
shows that. But yeah, and I like that they still continued with, like, they had like more. I think they had like two after the actual wedding party where
Mm-hmm.
Dozier's brother gets married to
Mm-hmm.
Denise's friends. And but yeah, the one was really, really nice. It was too,
Yeah.
I feel like for Shola Wale, it was much used for even her husband, which was, I think, Ali Baba. It was just chill. The men, they were more of good vibes. The women, they were the ones that, they were all
The women were
stressed
the ones
about
that
the
were a
whole
little bit
wedding.
like, yeah, coming to each
Yeah.
other. And what's her name again? The one who plays the mom. So Wale, let me see her name again. Like I love her
Sola
in everything. Like
Sobowale.
Sola Sobawale, yeah, she's so
Yeah.
dramatic when she was like, oh, her daughter, and then she's now crying. Like I just love it. I feel like it's such a feel good movie. You can't watch that movie and not laugh, right? You just have a good
Mm-hmm.
time. And even with the minister, the person that they brought to like pray, like it's just hilarious. And I feel like that's a good way to just like get a little information about like what Nigerian weddings and cultures are like. Even though it's a bit dramatic, it's just a movie that you can watch, have fun and laugh. And then the wedding planner, she also is just like so intense and dramatic, and she's trying to figure out things, and then she takes off
Yeah,
her wig
exactly.
and she's just like
Yeah,
stressed.
that scene.
The scene where she's like, she's had it. She's just like, she's taking off her wig. She's tired. It's just so funny, right? I feel like I want to watch that movie again and just like have a good laugh. So, like I said, when I had come back to Nigeria, I feel like everybody was talking about it, and they were talking about like these two actors actresses like getting married, right? So it was such a big thing there. And if you haven't watched it, then you should watch it. And if you watched it, rewatch it again, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you so much, Cynthia. I had fun doing this. Like this was, you always have such good recommendations, like, and I'm going to have to watch Rattlesnake because I haven't yet, so I'm always going to
Yeah,
watch. Like
please
you have
watch
such
it.
good recommendations, so definitely keep up with her channel, and I need to keep up with your channel also, so that like I get some more good movie recommendations, because the picks that you have are always very good ones. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks. Definitely follow her, the movie genius, and I'll see you around next time. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you.